City of Northglenn, Channel 8, keeping you informed of events in your community.
The regular study session to order. Joanna, would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Downey.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Dodge.
Here.
Councilmember Snetzinger. Councilmember Mollica.
Here.
Councilmember Sowers. Here. Councilmember Joe Brown.
Here.
Councilmember Becky Brown will be absent. Councilmember Whitman. Here. Councilmember Escobar.
Here.
Thank you. The first thing on the agenda, and Jim, I'll turn it over to you, is proposed 2018 budget.
All right, just one housekeeping thing. You may notice there are no microphones in front of you. There's 2 microphones actually in the ceiling now, next to those speakers, or those square panels have been replaced. They're the omnidirectional microphones that we had talked about. So they're very hot, at least in terms of picking everything up in the room. So just passing that along. We'll see how the recording turns out when we listen to it this week. So, with respect to the first item, proposed 2018 budget, we had this on here as a placeholder in case you wanted to have some last minute feedback or comments, input on the budget before the public hearing next Monday. And so I brought that up last week. I know Councilmember Escobar had wanted to have some discussion about Huron Street specifically, but we can of course talk about anything related to the budget. And I'd really turn over to Jason if you have anything you want to add to start with, or we can just open the discussion. So.
Sure. As Jim said, the staff isn't bringing anything forward from what was presented August 7th. There's one thing not on the appropriation that we'll be approving over the next couple of weeks. The appropriation is the expenditures, and that's what the council really ultimately is approving. On the revenue estimate side of things, we did get the preliminary estimates from Weld County and Adams County. Those actually, Weld County dropped about 8%, which is it's a oil and gas related assessment. So pretty minor in nature, but the Adams County actually increased 29%. We had estimated to go up about 10%, so it ended up actually going up 30%. So there's some additional revenue in the budget that hasn't been planned to be allocated. It's an estimate, much like the sales tax forecast. We'll see how those things play out as the year progresses. But I did want to mention that would be one thing that we do have on the forecast is a firmed up number. It was once we get that preliminary, so we made that adjustment.
Was there any big cause for that jump from 10 to 29%? Was there one specific area that's allowing that to increase?
Yeah, one of the biggest changes was in the residential assessment, and that, the estimate was about 20-25%, and it went up about 39%. So that was significant. That's about 2/3 of the assessed valuation in the city is residential property. So that spike kind of drove that a little bit. So.
Anybody else? All right. Antonio, do you want to speak towards your?
I just wanted to include, I would say somewhere between 50 to 65,000 in next year's budget to finish that Huron project on the fencing that would be the east side, northeast side of 104th and Huron. That was, I understood initially it was going to be included in this year's estimate, but when I met with David Zabota on a walking tour, he told me it was not included. So into the 2018 budget, he said it would be somewhere around $25 a foot, but until you go out and actually get a bid, that's why I say anywhere between 50 to 70. So I don't know.
Can you address that? I mean, isn't there a number in the budget that we have allocated for that particular project?
Yes, so, and I know Mr. Escobar was not here that night in April that we talked about the project. I know you've been here for other discussions we've had on it. We initially started with the idea that, somewhere between $50,000 and $100,000 we'd be putting into the street. And when Brooke presented it, he recommended about a 25% contingency. So we had planned on a $125,000 project. At that point, though, City Council had directed us to not include the fencing in the project at that point, and that we were only going to do, if you will, the cobble and the landscaping and the tree removal with XL and so forth. When the bids came in, we came in at about $160,000. And I didn't get out there today, but I understand the work has started this week.
It's encouraging to see the ground actually moving.
Yeah, we're actually getting the project done. It should not take more than a few weeks to complete everything. So we specifically did not bid out the fencing. We did have an estimate, which I pulled up from the original stuff back in the spring, and it was a range between $22,000 and $100,000 for a fence. I think we all agreed that was really a big spread, and so Brooke had identified maybe $25, maybe $50 a foot, which would put it anywhere between, say, $35,000 and $70,000 to do that part of the project.
Just the fencing?
Just that wing fencing, essentially from 104th down to the edge of the high school, about 700 feet, I think.
And so you're correct then, I mean, the fencing was not included due to the discussion that we had had. But that doesn't mean that it won't happen in 19, because I think we're going to get this part of the project completed first and then move forward. Is that the thought process of council? Because there was a lot of money, in the beginning it was hardly any money at all.
Right.
And then we increased it twice.
Yeah, I think that the thing, barring some new direction from council, we did not really plan on any additional aesthetic improvements out there. We've identified the road reconstruction about $15 million. But the 4 mills, vote is contingent upon if we want to proceed with that type of project. Plus, we have a lot of other needs in the community for road improvements. So we had not really planned anything else other than the aesthetic improvements this year.
Okay. All right.
Again, we'll take some direction from
Yep.
council on
I
that
was-
if we want to.
We'll open it up to comments. Okay, Kyle.
Thank you, Mayor. And correct me if I'm wrong, Jim, but if I remember right, there was also an issue with maybe a homeowner not allowing access or something to part of that fencing, and that's why that fencing wasn't originally included. I just remember having that discussion as well, because we all wondered why that 700 feet wasn't included when the city originally did all of the fencing, and there was like a easement or something with that we had to do with a homeowner or an electric box or something.
That's a good memory. There's the infamous, I'll call it the orphaned post out there, where we had actually built the brick post, and then the homeowner on the corner at that time did not allow the city to come in and build that fence. We're not sure if that's still the same homeowner, because it was a long time, like maybe a couple of decades ago. But there definitely would need to be some survey work there to determine if we could put a fence on the public right-of-way without impacting those homeowners. That's correct.
Anyone else? So what
condition is it in?
Well, that's the thing, there's no fence there. It's basically a chain link fence that is in the backs of the lots. There's also a lot of overgrowth, dead trees, things that are kind of grown into the fence and landscaping area.
And it seems that we're doing aesthetic improvements, we would also include this.
The fencing.
I think so, yes. And if we could put the 70,000 or pull it from the 2017 budget and not into the 2018 budget. Jason? Yes?
Yeah, we'll be doing some appropriation amendments in November to kind of clean up things that have happened throughout the year, so that could be added to the budget in 2017.
Okay.
I'm not opposed to where it comes from.
Right.
It should be the 17 or the 18. But to have the Huron Center developed and then put this cobblestone on the opposite side of the street, the school is going to start their project in the summer.
Right.
I mean, that's going to be like that one little piece with a broken leg, it's like why can't you fix this one too? I don't know what the homeowners would say, but I think at a minimum, we could reach out to them and come up with a plan, whether it's right away or ours or theirs.
And just for the record too, it will not affect the current project because it'd be a different contractor.
Right.
So it won't hold up anything we're doing now if we want to go study that further.
Okay. Anybody else have any input?
I just have a quick question.
Sure.
So we would have to reach out to the current homeowner in hopes that maybe they change or they change their mind, and if they don't, then it remains the same.
Well, not necessarily. I've got the map here. Let me just see how many homeowners there are there. There's 6 or 7 properties there that we would need to contact. But we've not done any real survey work out there to determine where the property line is. It's a good neighbor thing to ask them before we put up the fence. But if they object or don't want to allow it on their property, then we'd have to see if we could still build it on our property. And it'd be more of a policy discussion from you if you want to proceed with that with some opposition potentially.
Okay. You don't know the cost of that, adding that addition of fencing?
We were thinking it may be $25 to $50 a foot was more realistic. So we'd probably get some firm quotes, and I think we'd have time to do that before we do the appropriation amendments this year.
And if that went forward, it would not impact what we're doing right now?
Correct.
Okay,
To be a new contractor.
Yes.
okay.
There's
Anyone
already
else?
some homes that have fencing back there now, am I correct?
I wouldn't call it
It's a chain link.
Chain
Well,
link?
no, there's wood fence there. I'm looking at it right now. There's about 3 houses that have the wood fence.
The North Glen wood fence or just a wood fence?
No, it's a wood fence, but it's uniform.
Are you on
Yeah.
So I don't know, I just brought it up because, you know.
So I'm wondering, before we make a decision, we still have time to just have this discussion, maybe reaching out to the community and taking a look at, talking
Yes.
to the homeowners, and if we have a better idea what we would have to do, and maybe also a firmer number
Yes.
of what it would cost to do that?
Yes.
Okay, all right, maybe you can bring that back next time. Okay, yes, Marcy?
Mayor, just a question, and it's only coming up because of this topic, but previous council member Susan Klein had been a champion of trying to get a fencing policy as to what fencing in general looks like, and council has talked about it several times. We've not really discussed it. So is this fencing going to emulate the rest of the city fencing that's around, or is it gonna be uniform and looking like the rest of the stuff the city has done?
It's a great macro question I don't have an answer for. I know the corridor plan has never been adopted, and part of that corridor plan includes public and private fencing, and what does the public realm fencing look like, and what do we want to maybe encourage private realm fencing to look like through codes and ordinances. I'd have to take a look at that plan and see. We would try to match what we've got now, absent some other plan, for sure.
I think that would just be important to me that it matches what we've done at this point if we were doing it. And then I'd really like to see, as part of the zoning and all of that, I'd like to see us address it. It's definitely been a topic for the last 6 years.
Yeah.
Okay, anyone else? All right, so what, you can bring it back maybe next, even at the council meeting, we can have a discussion on.
I don't know if we'll be quite prepared that fast,
Okay,
because
all right.
I want to get some pricing too, and
Okay,
then,
so whenever you're ready.
yeah,
How's that?
but definitely before we ask you to act on the appropriation amendments in November,
That's fair.
so.
Okay. All right, anything else? All right, thank you, Jason. All right. Next, we have the employee guideline updates. Paula?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Paula Jensen, Director of Management Services. You should have a memo before you that highlights changes and/or updates to the employee guidelines. The last time employee guidelines were brought before council was June of 2013, so it's been about 4 years. So it was time to take a look at them. We did that. We did not make a lot of changes. Under updates and changes on the memo, I have highlighted what I believe to be the most substantial changes that might need discussion or might not. The updates have been approved by the city manager. They have been approved by the city attorney. They were reviewed by the leadership team, and now they are brought to you. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, with that, I'll open it up to discussion. Anyone have any issues on any of the changes or updates to the guide? Yes, Kyle.
Thank you, Mayor. Can you just explain to me on page 25 of 21 on the thing, the 45 minutes, employees are expected to report for duty within 45 minutes of being contacted if needed, how that number was, how you came up with that?
Yes, I can. So we have employees in certain divisions who are on call during off hours or weekend hours in the event that we have a water main break or something like that. The practice has always been that if you're on call, you need to be able to report within 45 minutes of being contacted. We didn't have it written anywhere. And for whatever reason, it was becoming an issue. So I met with the operations superintendent and the utility superintendent, Rob Weber and Ray Reeling, and then met with the chief plant operator, and Rob met with his supervisors, and we determined that Castle Rock and Greeley, off hours, 45 minutes you could get here. So we looked at that geographical distance and agreed that 45 minutes was reasonable time if you are an on-call employee to respond to the emergency.
Weather permitting.
Absolutely, we are reasonable people at the city of Northglenn. Yes.
I gotta be there in 45 minutes, ain't gonna
Right.
happen.
And what we're trying to avoid, and unfortunately, we've had these circumstances where we have an employee who's on call and makes a decision for whatever reason to travel to Wyoming while on call, and then takes 2.5 hours to get back. That's not helpful when there's water gushing somewhere. We need them to be in a reasonable geographical area.
And they are aware, I mean, way ahead of time when they're going to be on call.
Absolutely, and they are paid while on call. They receive an hour of pay for every 8 hours of on-call.
Thank you. Anyone else? No? All right.
I have nothing else. Thank you, it's been a pleasure. I will bring this forward to the October 9th City Council meeting with a resolution for adoption. Thank you, have a good night.
All right, next we have Margot with the web design page. Pardon? Oh, left the building. Here she comes. She's back.
Margaret, do you need the projector on?
I'll do it.
Not yet? All right. I don't wanna. We're an efficient group tonight, so.
Really? That's good. It's not even a Bronco Monday, you know?
Mayor, council, happy to be here with you tonight to show you the newly designed home pages for the website and let's go here, a landing page or interior page. Now, the purpose for tonight is to get your feedback and direction on one of the two home pages and then your feedback on the landing page. Thank you. There are two home pages. One has 3 screens, or 3 folds, sorry. No, I'm good. I'll explain why I left.
Okay.
I have low blood sugar. And I was sitting back there doing this. So I ran upstairs to get something to eat. So, yeah, I'll be fine. So I need your feedback on the two homepages, which one you prefer, and then the landing page. They're not live pages. If you went there, you learned that. And the words that are on there is the Latin-based gibberish. So I hope you didn't try to read it.
Of course I
We all try to read it. Forever in my career, everybody tries to read it and says, "That's this. What is that?"
You have to put a warning on there.
That's right. So. The first one I'll show you is homepage 1, which is the 3 screens. It would be,
Okay, all right. Mm-hmm.
here we go. I'll explain as we go, and if you have questions as I go, feel free to ask. Now, keep in mind that everything on here is what all the research told Revise that we wanted. And the research is meetings with departments, meetings with council, some individual council members, coming to this meeting, and meeting with the committee. So it's what we said we wanted. We have the homepage, the menu up here, which will be on every page. Residents can be whatever we want it to be. Government can be, I made some notes here. City clerk, agendas, minutes, boards and commissions, city code ordinances, city charter, city council. Whatever we, at this point, it can be whatever we want it to be. This is economic development. It's how they want to identify themselves. They don't want to be economic development. They want to be business. So we added the doing because it's friendly and inviting. These are the departments: public works, planning, human resources, and so forth. This is the how do I. It's how, and this is a popular item on a lot of new websites. It's how residents do things: get a passport, pay a bill, apply for a job. Now, there is some redundancy between these links and the buttons and what's down below. But that's okay, because then the user can find what they need more easily, because they can access it from several different angles. We will have premium language, the Translate, Google Translate, and premium Google search engine. So we should have a good experience there from now on. And these will be mega menus that we discussed, long lists or semi-long lists, not overwhelmingly long, but long lists of departments or services. The picture is, the style now with websites is big images, a clean look, just really vibrant, telling the story of the city. And that's what we have here. We will change the picture seasonally or for events or whatever it is. We're having pictures taken now of North Glen that are beautiful and horizontal and long, so that they really work. These are the buttons that we said we liked. And these are all based on research. Research being the page views on our current website. Online payments, let's see. Job opportunities is number 1. Online payments is number 2. Document Center, which is web docs, is further down on the list, but it's well within the top 25. And Contact Us is about 40 on the list of 1,000. So all this is our current Contact Us. And then we put police here so that they could have a presence. Now, police could either go there or up here. Okay. This screen celebrates North Glen arts, festivals, parks and recreation, and Doing Business. Doing Business has claimed the blue as their color, so when you see them doing anything, it will be in this color blue. So these are just links, but they're big links. These are what we told Revise was very important. Northland Arts, we put on here because they have their own website, and I want to make sure people can find it. And so this will go directly to their website. This here is, it's what's new in Northland. It's the community focus. It's the things that we post that are important for residents to know, such as Connect Northland, water restrictions, possible new rec center, things that need to be up for a while. And one of these could even be a permanent link to construction projects like Huron Center or Justice Center.
So can these be changed out?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. And we can put pictures here. Websites are pretty flexible. That's one of the nice things. And then we could have a lot of text, more text, and just this would be the information that, a lot of it we currently put on the rotator at the top of the current website. The committee loves this page, and when I would call everybody to see what they thought, I love it, is what I kept hearing. So here's the newsletter sign up. We have several newsletters, at least 6, that I've identified so far. People can opt into them with an opt-out option too, which we don't currently have. Here's the calendar. And these are the news items, and it's in chronological order. So as they're added, the ones up here kind of go to the bottom. Okay? And then the bottom here, little tree.
Margot, can you scroll to the top fold, if you will? So under that contact us, one of the things that we're implementing that new CRM system and code enforcement by the end of this year, and we'll get that rolled out, hopefully citywide early next year. That would be a great spot for that CRM section where people could click, and then, we would launch that essentially, and we'll figure out that interface at the appropriate time. But that, again, right in front of everyone's face on the very front.
And that's one of the reasons we chose Revise, is because they're so flexible. We're not stuck with a website for a long period of time if it's not working for us. And it needs to accommodate implement new services. Okay.
So the social media is not accessed?
It's right here. It's a little small in my view, but we can work on that. And we have a couple others to add too.
Because right now, when you see that, it really doesn't stand out for most folks, at least. So. And I think that's a good thing right now.
It is. Okay, good comment.
Anyone else right now?
Okay. And then here is the second option. Now this is 2 pages. It's shorter. And we're providing it just so you have a choice. The same menu items here. Everything is the same. Picture is the same. The buttons are the same, except instead of police, we now have calendar here. So it's right at the top. It does take a click to open. These remain the same. And then this column changed too. Latest news would be the news items that we posted down in the corner of the other one. And these are the hot topics, I've been calling them, which they're not, but the hot topics like water restrictions, Connect Northland, things like that. The things that need a focus, the big issues that people need to be aware of. And that's what this is too. And then we would feature 1 or 2 with a picture, and that would be there. And that's the shorter version.
Input. Anybody have a preference at this point?
I like the cleaner second version. I just think the municipal sites that I've gone to look at, I just really like that it's so much cleaner and not busy. I think it appeals to the eye. I don't think the other one doesn't appeal. It's just my personal preference
okay.
that I think this one, I like how it will pop.
You know,
So-
follow your instincts on this. There is a degree of subjectivity, but with the creative, always. So that's fine, that's a good comment.
And one of my things that I would like to see somewhere, and I don't know if everybody would agree, is to be the seniors. So somewhere, I know it would probably be under residents, right? If it was listed, yeah.
For the senior center?
Just, I don't know, I like that they would have the easy access on the front page because to me, they're the most handicapped at using this type of media. So I just think if the easier we can make it for them to get to where they need to go, the better.
We could add seniors here.
It's just a thought.
No, we could do that. That would be fine.
Rebecca, you said?
Yeah,
I mean, they're just the ones that have the hardest time
I know.
navigating to me, so I
You're
would
right
like to
about that.
see that addressed. Let me see if I have anything else.
Anybody else? Yes.
I really like the second version as well. The one thing that I'm having trouble with is the column on the left-hand side. It just doesn't seem, as inviting. I don't know if it's a changing in font, larger font. I just don't know how to make it more exciting, like the one in color on the right.
when we have it populated,
Yeah.
I think you'll like it better. I know you will. It'll be alive, it'll have information, have a great headline,
Okay.
so.
Yeah, that was just
But
a fear.
I'm glad you said that.
And then I agree with the mayor on social media. I think people are more actively engaged, so we can make that a bigger option.
Okay.
Get more people signed up. And then your newsletter is still at the bottom on this option, correct?
So I'm wondering, now that we are a CLG and we're working quite hard to, get the, Des Estates and St. Stephen's, where would you be putting that?
That could go here,
We also have our own website, so.
and we could do a link to your website. That would warrant being one of these hot topics, one of these primary features, and it could be there for a while. It would also be a news item. Sometimes news items are also here, but to have a little bit more prominence, we could put it here.
I think it's important, especially since we're moving forward on this.
Margaret, that brings up an interesting point. If you go up to the top again, if you could, I mean, we've got, I don't know, how many companion websites, and we've got the store, we've got one for each event, we've got AHF. Would there be something across the top bar that would make sense to label link to, outside sites, and not call it outside sites, but you know what I mean?
Related sites.
Yeah, related sites or something like that,
I like that too. I think that's important.
We could do something. Yeah, that's a good idea. We do have a lot of websites.
Again, keeping in mind that people want to have many ways to get there.
And
So we'd
yes.
still keep the big
Yes.
red box for the
Yep.
arts, but then you might have another way to get to it if you had like related sites.
It's gonna
or
go
something.
like, it's maximum ease was the goal. Because that was the big complaint, is that people couldn't find what they wanted, including us. So maximum ease in finding things. So you're gonna be able to access a page one of 3 or 4 or 5 ways.
So what about the theater? Is that in the arts show?
It is. Michael has his own website called Northland Arts, and everything he does is under that umbrella. And I'm really determined to promote it, because I don't know that people know he has that. And they come to our site, the city site, looking for information about plays and concerts and movies, so it needs to be pretty prominent.
But that, to me, sends a message of art, not theater. So maybe it's a different title.
Well, that's what he calls it, though.
Okay, but I'm just saying, when you look at that, I'm thinking of sculpture in the park. I'm thinking of art.
And I can see I see that. But remember, a lot of his things will also be here. And possibly down here, depending on what else is going on. So I'll share that comment with him.
Yes, I just wanted to comment on the first page that it had police, right up front, and the second one doesn't. And is there an opportunity to put 6 instead of 5 in there, or? Too much?
Graphically, it wouldn't be as appealing.
Because I think police is probably, if I'm in a crisis, I'd like to be able to get there quick. More important to me than a calendar.
Well,
But I understand the importance of a calendar also.
what we could do is, this could come out, because this could all be addressed here. And police could be up here.
Or any emergency, for that matter. Fire or.
I agree.
Okay, that's why the first panel appealed to me.
Well, if I'm on my phone,
Because I
if I'm
saw
on my-
police up there first, but I like the second one also, so.
Yeah, if I'm at home on a computer, that's one thing, but if I'm on my phone and I can see police right there, I can just, go there quickly.
It's occurred to me too that we could put police up here, because right now it would only be under departments. And if it had more prominence, it would be.
That's all.
And it could also be here. It would be here. It could be here. It could be a lot of places, but it needs to be intuitive for people to go get it. And so having it just.
But that's
be
what I
right
liked
here-
about the first one, is that it's right in front of you.
What is it that on the police side, when you look at the stats, what is it that they were getting from police? Why is it on?
They have, people go there for a variety of reasons. This is very interesting. It's the top 1,000 pages. PD Press is number 4 of all the pages on our website, the press releases of the PD, with 20,170 page views. 20,000. Police itself, I know, it is. Police itself has 12,249. It's number 7 on the list. So it's really prominent.
Kyle?
So I'm also on board. I think that the police needs to be on the front page. I think community safety is obviously one of our top priorities. I would actually even like to see it down low in one of those links. I'm not sure which one you would want to eliminate, but I think that the more prominent, the better,
Okay.
just for easy clickability. And then I also have a question. I don't know if you have any pictures, but even last week and then right now, I've struggled to try to pull it up on my phone to see what it looks like.
The new site?
The whatever, the revise with the password and everything, and it might be my phone.
No, it's not live.
Okay.
I wouldn't pull it up on your phone. It's
No.
not mobile ready, it's just a JPEG.
And I want to try to see what this potentially looks like mobile, and so I don't know if that's
You'll have
a
that.
possibility.
Yeah,
or
oh,
when.
definitely. Not yet,
Okay.
but you'll definitely have the possibility.
Because I
And-
feel like that affects too which one I like, because I know that I predominantly access the Northglenn website from my phone and not necessarily from a computer, and so I would like to see how it flows that way as well.
I'll have to look into that. One of the reasons we chose Revise is because they have outstanding mobile sites.
And I totally understand it, but it's
I
obviously
understand.
going to flow differently, and so, and even for the community safety aspect, like Antonio was saying, is that link going to be readily available on my phone when
Okay.
if I pull that website up, and what may that look like?
That's one of the reasons why I don't pull it up on my phone, just like the parks brochures and things, because it's horrible,
I know that. Okay.
Yes, Carol.
One more thing. When we were talking about links, it occurred to me that whenever, and I know we've just gone live with WebTrack not very long ago. Man, is that the hardest thing to use? And I know that there are issues with WebTrack. I mean, what I've heard from Michael and Kate, that it's difficult to buy tickets for events. I think they were saying that the ticketing part and the registration part together on one system was creating issues. With that being said, when you're doing links, I think it would be important to link to WebTrack so
Oh,
that
yeah.
people can easily
Definitely.
buy tickets to
Yeah.
those things, yeah.
They've- I
And it's
know
not easy, because once you get on WebTrack, it's really difficult, but
they've had challenges with it, yeah. Yep, that's the plan. We will link to RecTrack.
Mercy.
So I just wanted to say, I know I am the most critical when it comes to this stuff, and I was really impressed and surprised. So I'll give you kudos for that. Just a couple minor things. I liked option number 1 more because I think more people will navigate the site that way than with the condensed version. So my preference is this one. I know not everybody navigates that way, but I think it's more important to accommodate for all styles. And just go back up to the top. I would suggest that you consider moving the search bar down so it hangs just slightly below the bar and you put the phone number to the city up there. I think it's more important to highlight the phone number than to hide it. And then make it so that they can click on it on their mobile device. I just think
That's neat.
asking someone to click on contact us to get a phone number to the city, I think is too many steps. They want to call the city, they want to call the city. And it is at the very bottom in the footer, but it's so small and it's
Yeah.
really far down there. So you could free up that room moving it down, and it could be transparent, so when it types, it brings up the text. I'm not sure I'm necessarily thinking that police is that important of a prominence in a box like that. I get it across the navigation, but I don't think it's the most important thing right there in those blocks. I kind of like Carol's idea of making it easier and making it more of a senior thing there.
I didn't
Then-
say replace police with seniors.
Okay.
Don't throw me
She
under the
didn't
bus,
say that,
Marcy.
but making it on the homepage.
I never wanted to do that.
Sure you
I
did.
think that's the box that it could go to if you were trying for placement.
Taking notes over there, I see it.
Instead of police, moving police up top, so it has the presence still, but being able to use that box for senior. I just would still really say, looking at what is it that they're going to at the police. If I'm having an emergency, I'm not coming to the website to make a
Right.
choice.
You're
I'm
calling
calling
911.
911. So I don't know that it's that critical important. I mean, I could see like paying tickets in courts and that sort of thing, so that's why I asked the question, like, what is it that they're going to for the police section? Because they're
So
certainly not.
up here would be enough, in your view?
Maybe it is,
Okay.
but certainly we need to, I think, again, looking at the stats of what really in the police and the traffic from social media for press releases is an obvious one. I mean, it's being shared, so they're clicking it, you're increasing the links. I'd skip those as opinion on that. But I think the first one is great. I really like it.
The
And thanks
first
for
one-
making the newsletter so prominent, because I think
Yeah.
that's really important.
The first one was designed for maximum convenience, and it's pretty.
And on the mobile view, it's gonna collapse, and by the time that they get down to the police, it's gonna be 5 boxes down. You're probably gonna
Cut out
lose
those
the
5
image, and those boxes are gonna stack on top of each other, and you're just gonna continuously scroll down. It's
So
just
it'll
gonna
be
get
like
longer.
vertical rather than horizontal, is that what you're saying? Okay.
Because that's generally how a mobile view will stack. It won't go much farther
It squeezes
across.
in, and it just kind of goes down instead.
It'll just start collapsing.
I'd be curious, I just wanted to see what it looks like too, because I think that more and more, and I know just me personally, that's how I access it, so I'd like to see how that is. Can I ask one other thing real quick, Marva? Too, if we ever get to streaming our city council meetings live, will there be a prominent link for that as well? Because I think that that'll be important.
Yes, and we are. It's a good thought. We could put it any number of
Asking your
places.
vice to do a sub bar on the top that is for the translate, oops.
Oh, no. There, what a relief that was.
For like the translate and all of that, making it one bar above it.
I was going to translate today.
free up the space you need for the navigation.
That would be good. So moving forward, okay?
Or question, concerning the police, when I am hitting the police button, I'm thinking police, you're housing the courts evidently in there, but how do I know that?
Courts can be here. Not everything can be prominent on the homepage. So courts could easily be under government. It could be under residents. It could be under departments.
But I think that's something else our residents look for, where do they go to pay a ticket or that type of thing, so.
Could be easily be under how do I pay my ticket? How do I find out what I owe? Okay. Anything else? So moving forward, am I moving forward with version 1 or version 2?
Just sitting here, I kind of hear, I just don't know like version 1 more than, am I hearing right? Most everyone likes 2, but you're 1. Joe.
Yeah.
I was, except I got what
She's saying about having the calendar and the more information on the front. So I mean, I'm not adverse to either, so that is fine.
Okay.
You want especially like thinking of moving.
So the 3-page homepage, or the 3-screen homepage.
Yes.
Now keep in mind too, we'll start with 1. We're going to do user testing. And if it turns out, or if the mobile, I think the mobile's going to be good on 1. If it I'm going to ask them about mobile for this. But if it turns out that it's clumsy or not working, we can always go back. That's what.
We'll come back to this.
Yeah, I plan to come back at least twice more. They're currently working on what we're calling the mini pages or the custom landing pages for some of the departments. And I want to show you those. Festivals, parks, and doing business are all going to have a unique appearing homepage. So they look like a mini site within our site. And that'll really make them stand out and be unique. Okay, the other thing, let's see. This is a landing page or a department page. This would be for Public Works, Planning, Human Resources, whatever department we have, Finance. Again, we have the menu bar at the top. That would be the same. Big pictures, links, and some text, a little bit of text. But links on the side for specific items.
Any comments?
too many.
That's okay.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Is that font our brand font? Because it's not a good web font for the body font.
I'll check on that. I think it is. I know it is. It's too little.
Well, I was gonna say, and then have them increase it 2 points, but,
It's a tough font to read mobile.
Okay.
I realize it's a brand font, but we might wanna reconsider that.
No.
I tried to pick the exact font because it's a Google font, but I looked the font wasn't recognizing it.
Okay. And I want this bigger.
That font, because it doesn't have the legs, in comparison, is easier to read.
This? Yeah.
Your Q's and G's are tough to see in there.
It's okay. I appreciate your thoughts. I do. So, can we move forward with this? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so thank you very much. I was excited to come and present this to you. I was proud of it, so.
Who's your testing group?
You know, I was thinking about that. I'd like to get a handful of residents, and we can also use it with employees, staff, and just have them go to it, experiment with it, look for things, see what they think. And then if something is not what it needs to be, we can fix it. That's the beauty of a website. You can always adjust. Yes, I will.
All right, thank you
Very much, everybody. Okay.
And Margaret, when's the next check-in? Do you know that off the top of your
I'm
head?
expecting the group is expecting the committee pages really any time. And so it could be within the next month, if I could come back with those. They've been working on things before I came with this, they were working on those already. So we haven't lost time at all.
Okay.
And I'm really eager to see those. And those two are
Based on what the individual departments said they wanted, what Jill and Debbie want, and what Stephen wants.
Okay. So 4 to 6 weeks roughly,
easily.
we'll be back and
All right.
keep
Sounds
it
good.
moving. So,
Okay. All right. Next topic, we are all been close to our hearts. David, are you here? Oh, David is not here. Oh. Traffic calming, all right.
Before Kent starts, I just want to mention, this was a multi-departmental discussion about this topic. We talked about this at our Thursday executive DRC, I think at least 2 or 3 times, including with the police department, with planning, and of course with public works. So got some things for you to consider tonight. And just so you know, we did reach out to a person who's been emailing us on Melody Drive, invited her tonight, as well as the folks on Claude Court, Ms. Shea, that's been kind of their point of contact. They're familiar with what we've got in the packet, but we did tell them, there's no testimony tonight necessarily, so that may be why they didn't choose to show up.
Right. And I have to say, just to add to that talking with the mayor this morning, it was a huge topic. It was, yeah. So I'm all ready for your traffic calming.
So, good evening, Mayor, Council. Thank you for having me. Again, as Mr. Hayes has stated, traffic calming policy, and we're really, the policy's been working really well, except for, again, these larger areas that are, the petition is enormous, because it's a large affected area. So we presented kind of some things that, are already in the policy that we can implement without adapt or, without modifying the policy. And then we've presented a couple options that, may need some modification to the policy. And of course, we're always open to other suggestions and whatever else we can do to improve this and make this better for our city. Would you like me to read the options, or?
Why don't you refresh us? I mean, I know that we looked at them, but.
So we have the current policies in place, and, right now it's a 75% petition for an affected area. So the current policy provides that city council with the discretion to waive the petition requirement and move straight to the community meeting and design phase for the purpose of evaluating and implementation of the comprehensive traffic calming measure. So again, kind of just summarizing that, even in these large affected areas, and again, we're talking about Claude and Melody at this point. So we've done the analysis, the engineering analysis that says, yes, there's speeding, there's, whatever, the ADT's over the limit, whatever it is to trigger a comprehensive study. And then we go to the petition phase. So you have the ability to say, look, this affects a ton of people and residents in this area, and there's no way that one single person or even a combined group is going to get that 75% threshold. So you can say, well, we want that area studied anyway, and that you have that freedom within the policy. The second option you have within the policy is to do something lighter, which again, we put in there is the basic traffic calming, which is, kind of what we do now. We we put out the speed trailers, you know, we kind of patrol the area, you know, we do some of those things. And it also includes, you know, striping of bike lanes and stuff, you know, kind of, I think Brooke uses the term road diet. So, and I know that they're working on their entire, you know, bike ped plan, master plan for the entire city. So that's also something that you can do without modifying the policy at all. Items number 2 and number 3, we get into, you know, item number 2 is the maximum number of signatures can be modified, you know, and we just used a round number based on our group meetings of, you know, 100 impacted residences or 75% of the area, whichever is less. It's just kind of a number we kind of came up with. And the third one would be the required percentage to support the traffic calming can be reduced for all locations that reach the petition phase of the traffic calming policy. And we didn't really come up with a number. Again, through our kind of findings and when we developed this traffic calming study, you know, 75% seemed to kind of be a good balance and range within many other jurisdictions around the nation. So those last 2 will require a change in the traffic calming policy, and we would make those modifications and then bring it back again for an adoption. And again, we're open to any other suggestions you may have, and that's kind of it.
Okay, all right, input.
Yes, Carol.
So I understand that it's really difficult to get this many signatures, but I think in my eyes, I would like to see a little bit more of a try on the people's part to get some signatures, because, you know, 3 and 2 and 3 means you really didn't do much work to try and get people to back you and support you. And what you're asking the city to do is pretty major, so I would like to see a little bit more of a buy-in from the community that's affected by it. So that lets me down a little bit, but that being said,
So I have a question
Yeah.
for you. So you're saying you want it higher than 75%?
no, I'm not saying anything yet about changing
okay.
any of it. I'm just saying, reading
Okay, I
the
was just trying to
statistics,
translate
I
it.
wish that there was more of a buy-in.
Okay.
When we would move directly into a community meeting and design phase, that's just a decision that we would make as a council, saying, we think Melody and we think Claude, we should move forward. I'm okay with that, except I think that puts a lot of the ownership on us, even though we should be making these improvements for the city. I feel like Northglenn is the only city that doesn't do any traffic calming. It kind of bothers me a little bit when I drive around other cities. I feel like we've always kind of talked our way out of doing any kind of improvements on some of the roads that people have complained about. And it's starting to actually feel old to me, being on council for so long. I see them in Thornton, I see them in Westminster, I see them everywhere. And I always feel like, well, we always use that emergency vehicle response as the response, but I don't think that you can buy into that anymore. So looking into it a little bit more, I do see ways. I saw some speed humps that are friendly to emergency vehicles. That actually are spaced apart, rubberized platforms, and then they can actually go through the wheels. It's just based on placement. I like some of the newer options with these rubberized materials. They look really good going across the road, and they're striped so people can see them, yet emergency vehicles still can handle it. I just feel like Northglenn needs to step up a little bit as a city, and where we do have some big issues, we do need to do something about it. That's how I feel. Just, I see other cities doing it, and I don't understand why we always are the ones to say, well, no, we can't do it there. Well, I think we can do it there, so that's my opinion.
Okay. Kyle?
Thank you, Mayor. I have a couple things. I still think that the requirement of 100 impacted residents, I still think that's too high. It's difficult to get community engagement, and I think we've seen that as a council, and so I don't want these residents to go out and feel like, you know, they have a hill that's just impossible to climb. Two questions I do have, though, is one, at our ward meeting the other day, we actually had a resident complain about speeding out here in front of the park and in front of City Hall. And so that's obviously an area where there's not residences until you get up here. And so, but he was specifically talking about the edge here. And so how would that be addressed when you don't have residences there? Is that going to be just completely up to council if we wanted to do some type of speed calming there? And then I have another question regarding Thornton's iWatch program. Are you familiar with that, Kent?
I'm not, I apologize.
And so I researched it a little bit, and they have a program for their traffic calming where they actually hand out signs, yard signs to their residents who are having an issue or, to put up. They actually come up with their own phone number to report to the police of speeding. And so looking it up, it seemed like it was pretty progressive way of tackling this issue prior to doing actual work on the street. So I would be interested to see some of the ideas that they're doing next door as well.
What was that program called again? I'm sorry.
iWatch. And so that's just my 2 cents.
Anyone else? Marcy?
Just remind me roughly what the cost is if we were putting in the humps in an area.
Would vary for a length or for a section or.
Just give me a rough, like, is it 10,000, is it less?
It's in the,
For $1.
Did I miss it?
so at the bottom of all of the options, there's a cost key, and we don't have specific, kind of $1, $2, $3 signs kind of thing. So speed humps look like 0 to 25 each, if you will. 25,000, that is.
So for me, when it comes to putting out this kind of money in a particular area, and I agree, looking at a Melody or a situation on Pod Court feels a little bit different. But for some of the other areas, I know we've had some of our residents, 118th as an example. I personally have a hard time saying yes to those areas when there's not a bigger buy-in and there's not more effort coming from the residents over there to say that they want it. When we get 4, using some of those stats, for me, that's just not enough to spend that kind of money. There's lots of other projects and there's lots of other area, and I'm just not okay saying I'm gonna put that kind of money when the residents aren't willing to come forward. So if it's that big of an issue for them, then they'd be willing to put it up and say, yes, I want it. So for me, I wouldn't be in favor of lowering it. I think sometimes things in the city are, I don't want it to be terribly difficult, but I just don't think it's that difficult if you're having that much trouble on your block to get your residents to agree to it. And then for me, I'm also really not in favor of making it any easier. I've heard from other communities that it has been a problem when they've put them in. Wheat Ridge is an example, and residents over there want them out in their areas. So I'd want to see more information about that as far as how many other cities have been successful. So the fact that another community put it in doesn't necessarily make it a great program and working and or what the residents want in the end. Sometimes we think they're great ideas and we put them out there and then it's not such a great idea and then we want them out. So I just would want to know if it's Thornton, Westminster, what has the feedback been since they've put them in their communities? Are they getting more calls that they want? They're unhappy, people's cars are damaged, it hasn't done any decrease in the traffic. So I'm just not game yet for making the change.
And I think some of that comes with, again, we're new with the traffic calming policy. We're in its infancy and we're trying to, make it the best policy we can. So we have these 2 areas that qualify for these larger areas that really are need these comprehensive studies. But again, on one side, we're not getting maybe the resident participation to reach that threshold that we've set. And on the other hand, it's a big cost for the city to go ahead and implement something that says, hey, let's go ahead and take a look at that. And when you do get to that comprehensive point, I think that's when you hire the consultant, and the consultant begins to build that menu item of lists of, hey, these seem to work, these work in other communities, and that residential buy-in, what do the residents see, what are the, and you get to those community meetings and stuff. But right now, we're just kind of stuck on these two issues. So we just need a kick of which way to go. Do we stick to our guns here of what we've built, and we say, residents, this is the requirements of our new policy, and go forth, or you as the deciding members can override that based on, the policy and say, staff, go ahead and get this ball rolling, and let's see what a community outreach program looks like, and maybe a design consultant to do some preliminary research and see what that looks like without, with some cost, but not that large chunk of cost that we're looking at actual implementation. So I'm sorry.
And to piggyback on what Kyle said from our board meeting about community center drive, I guess what more deterrent do you have to have? You are speeding directly in front of a police station, and if you are a resident, you know that they sit here. So like, what more do you need? Like, you're asking for the ticket, we're gonna hand it out.
He was asking for flashing signs, one of your options.
Is that the arrow that says police department go that way?
Wanted to say ticket,
Yes.
what is it that you need as a cue? Like, you're in front of the PD, it's.
And I'm not necessarily against the 75% threshold. I'm just against the idea, and Claude Court's a prime example, that Claude Court has to get, 200 and some odd signatures to have that looked at. And to me, that's not fair. 118th would be different because there's not as many affected homes. It wouldn't be than probably the number that Claude Court has to deal with. But when you're getting into that number, that's really tough to organize and tough to engage. And to me, it's almost insurmountable. And so, and so I don't know the solution to that. It's just, to me, that just doesn't seem fair. Melody's another example, like you said, Marcy, is that just the number of houses. So I'm not against the threshold. It's just when you get those unique stretches that kind of make it not as feasible as some of the other stretches that we deal with here in North Glen.
For me, Melody Drive is a different story than Claude Court because it is so wide. And I think so we need to address it probably in a different manner, maybe make it a little narrower, put the head line, for the bikes or something. Because it's kind of, we've got this huge street, we can drive, we can speed. For me, it's a different story. Claude Court, I've actually made it a point to drive there recently quite a bit. And I have to honestly say, and I was there today, there was not a lot of traffic. There was not a lot of traffic over there at all. So it was just because I've been trying to figure out in my mind what to do. But the other thing is, and I think I recall David saying this, it kind of makes me wonder if we need to look at this a little differently. I always thought that they would check just the street, but they also checked all the other streets, 118th and 14th coming in, and maybe, just maybe we just take a look at Claude Court, and not the impacted other cross streets. Because,
I know what you mean.
because it's 119th and it drops down to, I want to say maybe 18th and then 15th, 14th, that type of thing. But maybe if folks are walking up and down their street and not having to go on all the cross streets too, that might make a difference. I don't know.
I think that, I know what you mean. I think the rationale behind that was, and I saw that map, that if you looked at Claude Court and then you looked at all the streets that intersect Claude Court, and I'm assuming you guys looked at this and said, well, if we draw a line kind of in the middle of those streets, these people are going to go that way to Irma, and these people are going to go this way to Claude Court with their vehicle trip decision. And so, although they don't front on the street, they might be impacted from a trip, decision-making point where their car would go that way.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but I do think that the two streets, although they, have issues, should be treated just a little bit differently because of the type of street it is, And then you've got the school district over there on Melody, so there's a lot of different things. Yes?
Yeah, I'm being a proud resident of Melody Drive.
Yes? Yes.
And National Night Out, that was the #1 concern. When I walked the neighborhood inviting them to National Night Out, that's what they wanted fixed, the speeding on Melody. On Melody Drive, there is not one marked crosswalk. No marked crosswalks. You got a high school that's not a school zone on Melody Drive. We got, during lunch, you got, I don't know.
Right.
There's 1,800 kids there. have one lunch hour, probably 500 kids on the street, crossing Melody, right there on the walkway coming from the high school before Monterey Court. Yeah, I don't think you can put a price on getting someone killed or hurt. And I agree with what Carol just said, It's time that we do something and not depend on the residents to sign and walk and petition. They've already told us, they elected us, we should just do our job. As Miss Maggie Ride says, do your job. Well, maybe she's right. Maybe we need to just do our job and get some crosswalks in there. I looked up the digital speed displays, the pricing from ustrafficsystems.com. They were anywhere from $1,400 to $2,500. That's not a lot of money if you had to put 10 of them on Melody Drive, 5 on each side. So you spend, what, $25,000? That might save somebody's life. I know that when you go on and you shop, until you click that button,
Right.
you don't really get a real price.
Yeah,
They're just inviting you in, These are leads to my website. But something needs to be done on Melody Drive, whether it's speed bumps, crosswalks, digital display signs, digital speed limit signs. How many of these mobile, I know we used to move them around as part of the
We used to
CPAM
have
program.
one only though, right? We just want two?
We have two speed.
We have
Two
two?
to cover a city.
Okay.
So how long do you have to wait till you come back to that same street? These are solar equipped, and you don't move them, they're there to stay. I just think we need to do something as council members and stop depending so much on
I agree.
the
I think
residents to,
we need to do something, but it's the something, we're not quite,
Well,
that's the
even if you
problem.
just put a line down the middle of the street and said, this is a crosswalk. That would be helpful. There are no markings on Belford, there are no markings on 99th, there are no well, there is I believe there is at Dew Drive and Melody where the stop sign is.
And I'd like to see a school zone because we brought this up.
And you got
Right.
kids walking, not just
Right.
the high school, but the elementary ride their bikes to Northmore.
We've brought it up multiple times about how, and I know you guys have how you designate them and whatnot, but it makes no sense that you're literally one house away from the school and Melody isn't considered a school zone. I've never understood how that stretch behind North Glen right there is not considered a school zone. I know that it is on Huron.
That's what I was just
And I
gonna
feel like
say.
Huron's
Yeah.
further away from the school than Melody is. Melody's actually closer to the school than Huron is, even though Huron's, more
Well, I
heavily
think it's
traveled.
right there, it's right there.
But yeah, it's made no sense for years why that's not a school
As
zone.
one resident told me, it only took us 50 years to put the flashing signs on Huron. How long will it take us to do something on Melody?
Yeah.
Another 50 years?
Yeah.
I just feel that these are the things that give me heartburn when the residents start complaining about things and we're not addressing it. And this is what they sit around and they talk about and say, well, you can spend a ton of money on a study to do a bike ped mobility, but you can't spend the money to do something for the safety of us. So my 2 cents on this is, why could we not sponsor the community meetings, at least? Not move into a design phase, but do the community meetings in these 2 areas and see if people show up. Okay, so the people aren't going out and getting the petition numbers that they need. So let's see if at a community meeting, some of the people will show up and have a buy-in to what we're gonna do, and then decide whether we should spend more money and do the design phase. But
And ask them what they want, just like we ask other questions. Yeah.
that's what I think.
Yeah, okay, I kind of agree with that, I like that idea. Kyle?
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry. While we're complaining about things, another thing that I have on my list is the crosswalk right over here where the new bricks are. And I know we cut down the vegetation, around the corner, but we've brought up multiple times about a flashing sign for that crosswalk so they can flash just like we see in other communities when people are getting ready to cross. And I still find it extremely dangerous even without the vegetation. And I'd be curious to see where we're at with that. And like Antonio said, I think that you can't really put a price on somebody's life, and if somebody ends up getting hit in that crosswalk, even after we've talked about it multiple times, then you know, where does that put the city and where does that put us in liability and whatnot? So I think that should be a top priority as well.
Anyone else? Joe?
Okay. I think we stick with the original policy that we have. However, I do agree with having a couple of meetings with these two particular major areas of concern. Just a one-off thing to see who shows up, to see who will, you know,
Right.
be on board with it. Because it's a huge expense, and like Marcy said, you could have 20 people on the street that want it, and then we go in and we spend all this money and put it in, and then now you've got 200 people that don't. So, my whole thing is sticking with the policy, the original policy, but having these, the Melody and the Claude Court meetings as a one-off thing, just to see what kind of buy-in and what kind of participation is gonna drag people in.
I agree with that. And just to tag on to that for a minute, Joe, years ago, in the 90s, when we did have more of an open policy, I will tell you, the reason why it is the way it is today is because folks would come to a council person or a couple of them and ask for speed bumps, and the speed bumps would be put in, and that is a cost, putting it in. And then the other residents on the street came back and said, we don't want this, we never agreed to it, and so then the city had to go back and take them out again. And it's cost more to take them out, from what I understand, than it does to put them in. And so that's why we have the policy that we have today, is because of that situation. So just kind of a little bit of history there, guys.
And I get that, I just think why not have the meeting, then the naysayers can say to the people who really want them, well, we really don't want them, and then they can kind of get
Right.
each other's points of view.
I
So-
agree, I think that the meeting is a good idea, so.
And my thing is on it too, is that we've already determined there's a problem there.
Right.
We've already put the speed trailer out, we've determined that speeding is happening on these streets. I still don't think it's fair, though, to ask Claude Court to come up with, 240 signatures. That just seems insurmountable to me, and I think that we have to look at that and make it a more equitable solution. And not necessarily that one house or 5 houses can get a speed bump there, but 240,
And I think that's why we have the meeting, and then we can make that decision, to waive those conditions or not, or see what we can do. First have the meeting, find out what the community wants or really wants, and then come back together and talk about it and figure out what we want to do with that. Yeah, that's my thought. Marcy?
I'm not opposed to a meeting.
Go ahead.
I'm not opposed to a meeting to find out what the residents want.
Right.
But putting in a crosswalk at 100th Place and Melody Drive shouldn't be a resident decision. That should be a city decision.
Right.
Putting in a crosswalk at Bruce or Bridget on Melody Drive shouldn't be a community thing. That should be a city decision.
Right.
You know, and there's no reason.
Traffic calming for the
we're-
meeting, and
right.
that I totally agree
I
with
mean,
you.
but that's.
No, I agree with
That
you.
helps
Yeah.
to slow people down.
Does it?
Yes, the crosswalk does.
Does it?
Melody, it hasn't slowed anyone down.
No.
It has a roundabout. and it
Yeah,
hasn't
I didn't
slowed
think so.
anybody down.
I mean, I've been, yes, yeah. I
It would
don't.
slow, I mean, it would be more, it would make me more aware, and I would think it would make most drivers more aware that that is a crosswalk there. Right now, there's just a freeway.
So, on Irma Drive and Malley, okay, you've got the Irma Drive is a north-south, and then Malley is east-west, and it's like a 3. We have a dead end, on the east side of Irma Drive. We had an accident there, a major accident. The car came through from Malley, heading east, and drove right into the house's basement. The car was sticking out, all right? So we put the crosswalks in, we put the stop signs in, they still don't stop. We put the flag on the stop sign, and they don't stop. I mean, I'm just giving you an example, so. And Jim can verify that stuff.
Can we get those nails?
So I'm just, I mean,
People down, just throw them out
right,
in the street?
right. I mean, and it's just crazy. People are just driving
Oh, they are.
more, so fast all the time, every place. You know, I don't know what the answer is, you know, but I think we need to address all of it. I do,
I'm not opposed
definitely.
to any community meeting, I'm just saying.
Right, I know.
Crosswalks or something that
So
should
I've
be
got,
marked.
so does the
Particularly in the
school have any input about where we put the crosswalks at, close to the schools, or what do we do with that?
I guess they would have input, but I would agree with Councilmember Escobar, it's our decision.
Okay,
It's our street,
okay,
yeah.
all right.
Oh, I know Marcy had a comment.
Oh,
I
I'm
was-
sorry,
I was
Marcy.
gonna try to summarize what I've heard,
Yeah,
so.
I just wanted to clarify one thing that I was saying, and I'm not opposed to moving forward with Claude and Melanie and addressing it.
Right.
But I'm curious, what could be our change in wording? Because I'm not sure that I'm even clear. What could trigger for us to waive? What's the actual trigger that says, if this situation happened again in an area that they get to 300 is the number, how does it get triggered that council gets to have a decision instead? Because I don't want to consider one where they had to get, 25. But how does the wording work to get that trigger?
That's a good point.
So, I'll defer to Kent if I say this wrong, because he's our subject matter expert, but I think what I've heard tonight is that under your options, you have option 1A, which is, I think I'm hearing direction tonight to schedule a Claude community meeting and a Melody community meeting.
I think a combination meeting.
Well, those are separate.
Let me rephrase my question,
Yeah,
because I think
I'll
we're going
answer it.
down the path.
I-
Okay, I'm sorry.
And, so yeah, two separate meetings.
Okay.
So we need to understand which one you want first, of the two areas. And then I also heard under 1B, there are basic traffic calming things you could clearly direct us to do tonight or direct us to evaluate on those streets, such as a simple crosswalk on Melody that we could implement right now. I would probably recommend that if we're gonna have the community meeting, it might be premature, even though it's been a long time, it might be premature to go out and start striping things before we have the meeting, but we can talk about that. And then to answer your question about what is the threshold, I think we tried to get to that in option 2 there, which is talking about, is it 75% or a raw number, whichever is less, and what is that raw number? Is it 50, is it 100, is it something else?
Okay,
So
1A says that we currently have the discretion to waive the petition. So we have the discretion, but does it come down to number 2? That's the number current in the system, or what we're proposing? If let's say that, for example, the folks never came to council on Claude Court, okay, let's take it back. What would have triggered that to come to council, other than them bringing it forward? Is 2 currently in place or proposed?
No, 2 and 3 would require a change to the policy.
Okay.
1A and B are allowed under the current policy.
All right,
Because it's a flat 75%
that's what I'm
right now.
trying to get at.
Affected
What
action.
would the change in the wording be to be the trigger? And you're saying that would be adding language number 2?
Correct. With, it doesn't have to be 100, it's just a raw number you can pick. You can say it's 50 or 25, some other number.
Or changing how you determine the impacted area. Like what Joyce is saying, I mean, you're considering such a huge area at Claude that surrounds. I don't know if that can be done, but.
I don't know if I would actually recommend we change how that analysis is done, because the engineers are looking at, where those people are making those trip decisions, and I think that part of it's pretty technically solid. I think the rest of this is more policy discretion. I mean, that is too, obviously, but I think we've got some other things we can pull some levers on probably.
Okay, anything else? All right, so you have your direction,
Yeah, let
two
me-
community meetings.
Let me just
then.
clarify, because this will take some staff resources.
Right.
So which do you want to prioritize, Claude or Melody? It would seem to me that Claude would be a little easier to get our handle on and probably cost less in terms of implementation, but we can do them sequentially. We just got to focus on one and then do the second one.
Who complained first? I mean,
I was
Melody
gonna
been
say,
Yeah,
Melody's
that's
been at
right.
it for some time, and I think we should put our efforts there. I mean,
Yeah.
it's only fair.
I would say Clark Court.
I would say Melody, only because I live there.
No,
I guess
but I
I'll weigh
agree.
in on
Melody-
Claude Court since it's in my
Melody
ward,
drives
but.
been out there a lot longer than the Clark Court situation has been around, so, I mean, I'm sure
You know,
the issue's been there as long, but the voices haven't been raised as much on Claude as they have on Melody.
Mayor, can I get a clarification on something too? On number 2, it says that we're doing 100 impacted residents or 75% of the impacted area, whichever is less. And I did have an issue with that number of being 100. I still think it's too much, and so,
That's just proposed.
That's just-
gonna
okay.
That's not
So-
in the policy. That's just something that we threw out there. If you would like to make it, I mean, again, it sounds like the direction tonight is the policy is going to remain the same.
Right.
We're not changing the
flat
policy
75%.
at 75%. Unless you're telling us now something different, that you want to change the number or the threshold to something other. But it sounds like we're just moving ahead with 1A, which is under the policy currently, which is bypass the petition and move into the community phase.
But I still don't think we got an answer of what triggers that. I didn't hear an answer of what triggers us to be able to go into bypassing that policy. Does it have to be a certain number of houses that come in that we can trigger that if it's
You always
250?
have that authority.
But we're not adhering to it now because there's only 3 residents that are complaining and we're just saying, okay, we're gonna do it.
There's nothing that gives you guidance to exercise your discretion to waive the petition process. There's nothing in there right now other than you can give us direction any night and we can carry that out
Let me
for
try
you.
saying it differently, because Kyle, I think you're hearing what I'm not getting.
Yeah.
If staff gets a new petition tomorrow for grant, let's just say it's grant, and council doesn't even know that we have this, what would get the staff person to say, oops, we should maybe bring council into this one? What's the cue to staff to say, council should probably consider this one as opposed to me? How would they make that choice?
I think we're making a slight change in our traffic operations request now to more inform the council. So we have and we're taking a step back from the traffic calming policy to the one lower rung below that, which is our traffic operations request, where we get calls for speeding and we put, we want to check out a speed hump, or somebody wants a sign, or somebody wants a crosswalk, whatever that may be, and we develop a traffic operations request. And then we have that signed by the engineering manager and the operations manager, and we go through the process of addressing that. And you've seen some of those in the council action item forms that are coming back. So what we're doing now to assist with that communication to you is developing a list of those things that are now, which of those TORs are closed out, which ones of those are remained open, and this would fall right into that same thing. It would be the traffic operation policy, or the traffic calming policy doesn't get generated on its own. It starts with a traffic operations request. So we would start with that traffic operations request, and then if it develops into the traffic calming policy, well, then you would be informed. So that's something that we're doing to begin informing you.
And so if let's say that something's going on in Ward 3 and it comes to Marcy or my attention, we could come back to council as a whole and say, this is something that we want a community meeting about, and that would trigger the potential of waiving the petitions or the requirement of the petitions, and we would,
I think
I'm trying to figure this out.
I think there's a technical nuance to that, and I would use it with some of our real numbers. We've had 30 or 35 of these TORs that have elevated to the level of a speed study, right? And 5 have met the criteria for potentially traffic calming to go to the petition phase. So I think staff would still do the technical work and determine, are there things that are warranting a full-blown traffic calming policy petition or community meeting process? And those 5 that you've got are listed here. So we would continue to bring those to you as they come up. But we probably wouldn't bring every single one that doesn't meet the speed study requirements. Is that fair to say, Kent?
I would say that, yeah. If it's not warranted based on our engineering analysis, then for And again, you always have this discretion, but I mean, it would seem not beneficial if you would override the policy if it's not warranted based on your staff, but you do have that authority. But, those aren't the ones that come forward again. We've had as Mr. Hayes said, we've had about 35 of these and only 5 have made it to this level. And of those 5, these 2 have risen to this level. So, we are a locked community, so, this isn't going to happen, too many times. We don't have that many streets.
Also, and I think if you look at the size of the street and how many people are affected, Claude Court and Melody, obviously they're huge and there's a lot of people, but if it were like my street where there's like 30 houses on it, then I think it would have to go to the required petition 75%. You know what I mean?
But that's a struggle, that's what I'm struggling with, is I like to have some type of structure to it, and it just doesn't seem very structured right now. It seems
Well,
like
that's
it
why
leaves
it's at
on.
our discretion. I mean,
I know, but that's the only problem I'm having is there's nothing there's not a trigger.
What if we just take out the 100 and just make it 75%, 60%, whatever that is? I think you have a problem with the 100, right?
Well, I'm having a problem with
I'm
the
not.
trigger of being able to come to council, have the community meeting, and potentially waive the requirements of the petition. That's what I'm struggling. I know that it's gonna always be at our discretion, but, let's say Joe Street has an issue and it qualifies. Is that option going to be presented to council at that point if it gets to that level that you guys determine that it fell within the category that it's?
In this example, if Joe Street qualified for the traffic calming policy and he was required to say there was 38 houses in his area, and of those 38, he was required to get 75% of those signatures, and he received 75% of those signatures, then in accordance with the policy, we would move forward into the next phase of the policy because he met the threshold.
That's not what I was getting at, Ken. I was getting at what would trigger like a community meeting, or what would trigger
If you got the number of petitions based on the.
So you have to get the number of petitions to get a community meeting?
Under the current
Under the
policy.
current
Under the current policy?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay. Anyone else? All right,
So I think, what I've heard is, we're gonna initiate Melody community meeting. We'll figure out a schedule, probably talk about it this week, and then initiate something with Claude afterwards.
One or two people can't get.
And then I think this is good discussion tonight, because you've got some kind of bumpers on the policy, maybe a clearer discussion of it tonight. We can always have more discussion about if the 75% threshold is too high, if you want to put a raw number in there. We can kind of revisit item 2
I
if you
think we
want.
have to. I
Yeah.
think right now, no one's really comfortable with,
Yeah,
policies.
yeah,
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah,
I mean, there's the option, 50% plus 1, right? I mean,
right.
but,
okay.
so, okay.
So when do you, and I know I'm going to put you under the gun, when are we going to start reaching out?
We've got to regroup, Frank. It wasn't something that was on our plan for this year, so, but we've got clear direction, so we'll get initiated on it, and I'll get back to you as to how soon we can have a neighborhood meeting.
Thank you.
So,
All right. Maybe, because I suspect, it could get a number of people, we might want to even hold it in a larger room, than this. Maybe
Oh,
over
yeah.
at the theater or something,
my preference
Or
with
even the
these
M&O.
is to try to have them in a location that's convenient for the community to get to.
Right, so the M&O
If you think of where we've
possibly.
held ward meetings for each of you, probably those locations are really good for, so, I think of the Shepherd's Hall for Ward 4 or something like that for Melanie.
M&O.
M&O, yeah, absolutely. So,
Okay, all right.
so we've got some local places, I think, that we'd probably
Okay.
try to, it's a lot easier to get people to come out if they don't have to drive too far, so,
Okay, all right, sounds good.
okay?
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we have nothing else on the agenda, so we are adjourned.
I'm sorry, one thing.
Whoa.
It's super quick.
Yeah.
We do not have any agenda items for the October 2nd study session. All projects are moving forward, and we don't need necessarily any direction on anything in the next 2 weeks. So I was going to recommend we just cancel that study session unless you have something pressing that we need to try to pull together the next couple weeks.
I think that's a good idea, to go ahead and cancel it. How about everybody else?
But Jim will have to be here, right?
Yeah. You stay, right.
Yeah,
Everybody
all day.
else. Okay, all right. That sounds good to me.
Okay, great, thank you.
All
That was
right.
all I had, thank you.
All right, thank you very much.